Good? Okay, good evening. Today's daf in Seita is going to be daf Zayin. We're going to begin in Vav Amud Beis Amar Rav Chisda. Yesterday we spoke about the whole Maisa with Pilegesh Begiva, that her husband made her so scared of him that she had to run away, and then she got raped, and there was many casualties that we're going to learn in a second that came from this whole incident. So Amar Rav Chisda says, La'ilam al yotel odam emi yisera b'seich beise. A person should not use excessive fear in his house. Why? Shari Pilegesh begiva. This whole story with Pilegesh in Giva, heitel aleh baila emi yisera. Her husband used excessive fear in his household, and because of that, she had to run away. V'hipila kamei vavis misra, and many thousands of Yidden passed away from this whole story when there was a Muhammad between Shevet Binyamin and other Shvatim, as the story in Shvatim tells us that the first 2 days there were over 40,000 Yidden, because there was the whole Muhammad with Shevet Binyamin and the rest of the Yidden. So the first day 40,000 Yidden died, and on the second day, or the third day I should say, there was like another 25,000 Yidden passed away from Shevet Binyamin. So Rav Chisda is stressing that La'ilam, never ever use, doesn't matter what the circumstance is, don't use excessive fear in a household, because catastrophe can come from there. Now, Amar Rav Yehuda Marav says, Kol hamatl imi yisera b'seich beisi. Anybody uses excessive fear or too much fear in his household, so what's going to happen? Seif hu ba lidei shalosh averos. Eventually he's going to come to 3 averos. Number 1, gilei arayos. He's going to come to have illicit relationships. Like Rashi gives the example, is let's say the woman is she's a nida, and now her mikveh night she has to go taival, and the mikveh. It's not like nowadays that you have hot mikvehs and beautiful mikvehs. In the olden days, it was very cold mikvehs, and it's cold, and she's going to tell her husband that tonight I don't want to go to mikveh. It's too cold to mikveh. So, and instead of her being honest and open with her husband, she's going to lie to her husband and say, I'm really tahira, when she's really not, because she doesn't have a normal relationship with her husband. Now, number 2, we said that the third aver is shvichas damim. Like Rashi says, is either, like we see the story of Pilegesh Begiva, or sometimes she's going to be so afraid of her husband that she's just going to run away. The wife is going to run away, and she's going to fall into a pit, or like jump off a bridge, because she's so scared. B'chilul Shabbos, or she's going to be Mechal Shabbos. Rashi gives the example that sometimes the woman has to cook before Shabbos, and she has to light the candles before Shabbos, and or she has to cook, and perhaps she's going to forget something, and she's so scared of her husband that she's going to light or cook even after Shkia, because she doesn't want to disappoint her husband. So again, these 2 stories is that to make sure that never use too much of excessive fear upon the members of your household. Now, another limit, Rabbi Bar Chana says, Hoda Amri Rabbanan. This that the Chacham say, now this is a Mishnah in Daf Lamed Daled Amud Aleph. And some people actually, I think it's a Sfarda Sheminah, they actually say this Mishnah every Erev Shabbos. Now, what's the Mishnah? It says, 3 things a person needs to say right before Shkia in his house. What is the first thing? Number 1 is Isartem. Like Rashi says, did you take off Meiser? You're not allowed to take off Meiser on Shabbos. So, and you have to eat, let's say there's fruit that a person is going to want to eat tomorrow. So the member of the head of the household should ask the members, Isartem, did you take off Meiser from the pears? Number 2, you have to ask Erev Shabbos, Eiraftem, did you, according to Rashi, Erev Chatzeres, according to Teisves, it's Erev Tchumen, but the question is, let's say according to Rashi, is did you make the Erev Chatzeres that we can go ahead and carry in the courtyard? Number 3, Hetlikos Haneres, did you light the candles? So all these things, Rabbi Bar Chana says this, that the Mishnah says that the head of the household should ask, that should be asked, Tzarech, Daf Zayin Amud Aleph, Tzarech Limemrinu B'nechusa. A person should always say this very calmly. He should say it in a very calm voice. Why? In order that people should actually accept the words of the head of the household. If he's going to say it rough, he's going to say it with a vengeance, or with people being scared from him, so nobody will listen to him. Now, Amar Rav Ashi says, I never heard this saying of Rabba Bar Chana that you have to say it benachas, but however, logically it makes sense, I took it upon myself, that it makes a lot of sense that a person should say this benachas so that his word should be accepted. Okay, Rav Avo says, a person should never use too much fear in his house. Why? There was once a story that a very great man, he used excessive fear in his household, and the people in his household fed him a davar gadol, which means a food which is aser. Fed him machalas asuris. Now, the Gemara says, Umanu, who was this Adam Gadol? Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel. This was Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel. So Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel, he used this Amy Yiseda, and people were very, very scared of him. The people in his household didn't want to disappoint him, so it happened one time that they fed him, according to, till we get into this, they fed him mamish a Michael, which is Aser. So asks the Gemara, Hechilu Sol Kadaitach, you think that they gave Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel a forbidden food? And the Gemara explains, Hashto behemton shal tzadikim. If by the behema of a tzaddik, Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu maybe takala yadam, Hashem does not bring an error even to the behemoths of a tzaddik. As we know, the famous story that the Gemara says in Chulin about Pinchas ben Yair, that once his animal was hungry, and they brought the animal barley of the Mai, which means Michael, that they did not take off Meiser, and this animal refused to eat it. He was a very holy animal. Why? Because he was the behemoth of a tzaddik. So he says, if a behemoth of a tzaddik, Hashem does not bring atakala through them, so then tzaddikim atzman lo yikol sheken. So for sure tzaddikim, Hashem does not bring atakala through them. So if so, what does it mean that they gave Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel, they gave him a Michael, which is aser? It can't be. If a behemoth doesn't eat machalis asuris of a tzaddik, for sure the tzaddik himself will never ever, even by mistake, eat machalis asuris. So the Gemara says, rather what it means is elabikshu lahachilu davar gadol, that the people in his household wanted to give him, or wanted to feed him something which is aser, and Hashem saved him. Now, my nihu, what was the davar gadol? What exactly did they want to feed him? So the Gemara says, Aver min achai. They wanted to feed him a limb from a living animal, which was aser. Now, what was the story? The story is that the servants of Rabbi Chanina, they shechted an animal, and they lost a limb of the animal. And because they were so scared to be open with him and tell him the truth, so what happened is that they just quickly took a limb from a live animal, and they figured that he won't notice that it's Aver min achai. Why? Because they were so scared. So from here we see that b'chal, with your household, with your employees, with anybody, always make sure to never cast the Amy Yiseda, because it will come back to bite you. Okay, now the Gemara says, Shalach Mar Ukva, the Rebbe Lazar. So now, after mentioning letters, we said from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, so the Gemara now, and we said that yesterday we spoke about Sirtut, that whenever you write Psukim in Atera, you always have to make sure that it has a sketch that has special lines in the Igeres, in the letter, if you're writing Tvar Torah. So, Shalach le Mar Ukva le Rebbe Eliezer. So Mar Ukva sent Rebbe Eliezer a question. B'nei Adam ha'indim alai. So he says that you have people that push and antagonize me, they're mitzar me, they make me crazy. And he asked him, Mar Ukva asked Rebbe Eliezer, I can go ahead and now give them over to the government. I can master on them, and I can tell the government what these people are doing to me, and I can get rid of my tsar. So Mar Ukva asked Rebbe Eliezer, Mao, what's the din? Are you allowed to do this or not? So what happens? Sirtut, Rebbe Eliezer wrote on a piece of paper, and he wrote lines on the piece of paper, because of lay, and he wrote to Mar Ukva the pasuk in Tehillim. The pasuk in Tehillim says, David HaMelech says, this is in Tehillim Amates base, Amarti Eshmra Drachai Mechatei. David HaMelech says, I said, I will be careful and watch my ways, and B'lasheni eshmara, and I will keep my my mouth quiet. L'fi machsim b'drash l'negdi, while the wicked are before me. So Rabbi Elazar touches up what the pasuk means is that alpha pisha rasha l'negdi, that even though I have a rasha who's antagonizing me, then nevertheless eshmar l'fi machsim, I will keep my mouth closed and not say anything. So that's what he says. Amarti, I said eshmar adrachi machte mechate b'lasheni, that even though that I have a rasha who's antagonizing me, eshmar l'fi machsim, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. So he basically told him, Rabbi Elazar told Mar Ukva that he wrote him, he hinted him that it's good that even though people are antagonizing you, are making you crazy, it's good to be quiet. So Shalach Lei, so Mar Ukva sent him back, but Kometsar Li Tuva, these people are making me crazy. And he basically told him that it's impossible, I'm not going to be able to handle this type of antagonization. So Shalach Lei, so Rabbi Elazar sent him back. It says in the Tehillim, David HaMelech writes, this is in Kapitel Amid Zayin, Pasuk Zayin, David HaMelech says, Doim la Hashem v'yischayil loi. So he touched up Doim la Hashem, which means like serve Hashem with quietness, with just don't say anything. And Hashem will make sure that the people who make you crazy, who antagonize you, will basically all become like corpse. They're all going to die. Now, what did he mean? What did Rabbi Elazar tell him? Hashkem v'hariv alei in the Beis HaMedrash. This is a famous expression. Basically, he said, get up and go to the Beis HaMedrash to learn Torah. V'hein, and the enemies, kolim alein, will go away by themselves. That min hashamayim, Hashem is going to make sure that the enemies don't bother you. Now, hadavar yatzam epi Elazar. This came out from the words of Rabbi Elazar's mouth, and unasanun legniva, and the person who was fighting with Mar Ukva, whose name was Geniva, they basically put him in koiler. They put him into like chains, and he was taken away to be killed. So basically, we see that sometimes when you have enemies and you have people that are antagonizing you, making you crazy, so the best way is not to fight with them, but rather just to, like he says, hashkim v'harav alein the Beis HaMedrash, go to the Beis HaMedrash, and v'hein kolim aleim, they'll go away from you. Okay, now the Gemara brings another story in Mar Ukva, also that has to do with another case, which we already spoke about this in Saita. And now the Gemara basically repeats the sugya. Now, Sholchalei Mar Ukva, Mar Ukva sent to him. The Gemara says they sent the following question to Mar Ukva. What was the question? The question was: is Zimra, when somebody sings, let's say singing, we know is forbidden. So he says Zimra singing in, let's say, in a house of joy. Minalan the Usr. What's the source that singing is Usr? So Sirtut, because of the who. So Mar Ukva, he wrote on a piece of paper, which had Sirtut, because of the who, and he brought the pasuk that says, Al Tismach Yisrael Al Gil Ka'amim. Pasuk in Yeshaya says, the Navi says that you should not be happy like the Simcha of Goyim. So what do we see from here? We see clearly that you cannot be happy you're not allowed to sing. Al Tismach Yisrael Al Gil Ba'amim. You're not allowed to sing in the house of festivity. So, why did Mar Ukva quote the pasuk of Hosea? Why not quote this pasuk that it's usher to sing in a festive house from the pasuk in Yeshaya? This is a pasuk in Yeshaya Chavdal Tes. The pasuk says clearly, "Bashir lo yishtu yayin." That when you drink wine, you should not sing. And what does that mean? The Bashir lo yishtu yayin yemar. It should be bitter. Sheikha l'sheisav, beer for those who drink it. So it says clearly in the pasuk that one is not allowed to, when he drinks wine, to sing. So there's your mucker that singing in a house of festivity is usher. So why didn't he bring that pasuk? So the Gemara says, Imahu, if he would have brought that pasuk, Hava mina hani mili zimra demana. You would say that dafke singing with instruments, that's usher. For example, let's say with a harp or with a different instruments, I would think that's the pasuk's referring to. Bashir leishta yayin is referring dafka with instruments. Aval b'pume deshari, but let's say with your mouth, just sing without instruments. I would think that that's not a problem. Kamashman. Therefore, Marukva teaches us by bringing the pasuk in Hosea that it's usher, every type of simcha it's usher, even singing without instruments. And obviously the question is, what's the heter nowadays to sing? So there you have Ramesha Feinstein and other Achronim say that the heter is that there's a few heter. Number one is that singing is like a type of remedy, it's a type of refuah nowadays, because people can't last without music. So when it comes to refuah, that's 100% mutter. Also, another heter is that if it's psukim, if it brings you close to Yiddishkeit, like in a lot of songs nowadays, so then it's mutter. And when I was speaking about singing, that's talking about stam singing songs that have nothing to do with bringing a person closer to Yiddishkeit. Okay. Now, Omar le Rav Huna bar Nosson Rav Ashi. Rav Huna bar Nosson tells Rav Ashi, "My diksiv." What is the pasuk? The pasuk in Yeshaya says, this is in Parak Tasvav, pasuk of Beis. The pasuk says, "Kina v'dimayna ve'ad ada." What are these? These are like we're going to see in a second. It's cities in Eretz Yisrael. So he asked him, Rav Huna bar Nosson tells Rav Ashi, "What is this pasuk? Kina v'dimayna ve'ad ada." What are these pasukim? So Amar le Rav Ashi says, "Masvasa the Eretz Yisrael kachashav." These are cities in Eretz Yisrael, which the pasuk lists, and these are names of cities in the Nachala of Yehuda. So Amar le Rav Huna bar Nosson, who is this? Rav Huna bar Nosson tells Rav Ashi, what's this pasuk? So Amar le, he says to Rav Huna bar Nosson, "Otu ano lo yadayna de masvasa the Eretz Yisrael kachashav." Do I not know that these psukim are that these cities? Are cities in Eretz Yisrael? So obviously it means something else. Elo Rav Gavia Margiza, rather Rav Gavia, who came from the city of Argiza, Amar Ba Taima. He said the reason. That what does it mean? Kina v'deimana v'arada. He said, Kol sheish lekina al chaveri. Anybody who has jealousy on his friend. In other words, he's upset. He's upset on his friend. That his friend really was mitzar him. He caused him a lot of pain, and nevertheless, v'daimim, he keeps quiet. He doesn't say anything. So Sheikh and Adiyad, Oisilidin Hashem, who's Adiyad, will save him from his friend and basically punish his friend. So Rav Huna bar Nosson wanted to know what Rav Ashi said on this drasha. Okay, so that's what he says. So again, Amar le Rav Huna bar Nosson le Rav Ashi, what does it mean? Kina v'deimana v'arada. So he explained that somebody has kina on his friend, but v'deimana keeps quiet, then he'll be zeicha to v'ad ada, that Hashem, who's adiyad, will save him and punish his friend. So Amar le, so now Rav Ashi tells Rav Huna, Ela ma'ata, if you're going to say that these words don't mean literally, but rather it's telling me something else. So now the question is, in the same perek, in Pasuk Lamed Aleph, I have the Pasuk that says Tziglag, Umadmana, V'Sansana, which are also three names in the city. So Hachanami, you're going to tell me also that you're going to darshan that they mean something else. So the Gemara says, Amar le, so he told him, if this man, Rav Gavia from Argiza, was here, have Omar Ba'taima, he for sure would have said the reason of why the Navi calls Tziglag Umadmana V'Sansana. Okay, so Rav Acha bin Bechazai Omar Ba'hachi. So Rav Acha from Chazar, he says that what the pasuk means is Kol sheyesh like tzakas legima al chaverei. Anybody who has like a taina that his friend stole from him or is taking away his parnasa, right? He's upset that his friend is mamish taking away his parnasa. He's being masik vul. V'doimem, yet he keeps quiet. So then sheikh and basneh, in other words Hashem, who as we know he resides in a thorn bush, as we know the story by Moshe Rabbeinu. So what's going to happen is sheikh and basneh Yisrael Hashem himself is going to save you from this person, and he's going to pay back the person. There's no need to act on it. Rather, Hashem will take care of you. So that's what it means. Tzigleg, that Hashem, that this person is like taking away your parnasa, umatmana, and yet you keep quiet. So who's going to help you? V'sansana, Hashem is going to help you, who resides in a sneh. Okay, so now we mentioned that it's forbidden to sing after the Churban Bayis was destroyed. So now the Gemara speaks about another Isser that was instituted by the Churban. So the Gemara says, Amar le Reish Galusa Rav Huna, the Reish Galusa tells Rav Huna, Kilila. Kilila means it's like a type of crown that they make for the chasanim, which again we spoke about this at the end of Saita, Daf Mem Tes Amud Beis. So they used to make a type of crown for the heads of the chasanim, and they would make it out of gold and silver, and it had beautiful colors, and it was made out of, like we said, gofris v'melach. It was a very nice crown. So the Reish Galusa tells Rav Huna, Kilila, this crown that they make for the chasim, minalan the asur. What is the source that it's asur for a chasim to wear this crown bisman hazeh nowadays? Because of the churban, it should be asur. So what's the source? And we know it's asur. So the question is, what's the source? So Amar Lei, so the Rav Huna tells the Reish Galusa that the isur is midrabanan. That it's the takanas chachamim. In other words, there's no source minatera, but it's asur midrabanan. The Tanah we learned in a Mishnah, and this is a Mishnah we just had in Seit Daf Mem Tes Amud Aleph. The Mishnah said that Bepulmus shel Aspionis, in the time that Aspionis made a siege around Yerushalayim to conquer Yerushalayim. So Gozra al Atres Chasanim, they made a gzeda on the crowns of Chasanim and Vala'idus, and on the instruments that you cannot play them in a festive house. Chachamim made a gzeda that you cannot. Chachamim made a decree to be memayit b'simcha. So they said that when it comes to the crown of the king, of Chasanim, and to instruments, you're not allowed to play this in. It's a Beferish Mishnah. You're not allowed to play this in a house of simcha. Okay, so this is what again. So the Reish Galusa asked Rav Huna, and Rav Huna answered him that it's Gzerim Midrabanan. I seen it in a Beferish Mishnah. So now Adahochi come Rav Huna leipnuye. Now, in meanwhile, Rav Huna got up to go to the restroom. Amar le Rav Chizda. So now Rav Chizda tells the Reish Galusa, Kra ksiv. What are you saying? It's midrabanan. You have a beferish pasuk that says that it's usher to wear crowns after the churban of the Beis Hamikdash. Shekasu, this pasuk in Yecheskel says, Kai Omar Hashem Elikim. Hashem said, Hoser hamitz nefes, remove this turban, v'horim ha'atara, and take off this atara, zois lo zois. And we're going to explain exactly what this pasuk means. Hashvala hagbe, those who are low, pick them up. V'hagavoy, and those who are high, hashbil. So the Gemara says now, and the Gemara explains this pasuk. Now, what is it saying? That haser hamitznefes v'horim ha'atara. What's the connection? Between the mitznefes of the Kohen Gadol or the Big Day Kohuna to the actual atara? Ella, rather, the pasuk is telling me that when the Kohen Gadol is wearing the mitznefes in the Beis Hamikdash, when the Beis Hamikdash is kayim, then atara b'reish kol adam. Then every person, every chassan could wear this atara. However, nistalka mitznefesh b'reish Kohen Gadol, once the mitznefes of the Kohen Gadol is off, then nistalka atara b'reish kol adam. Then every person has to stop wearing the atara, and therefore the chasanim who wear the atara, they have to stop wearing. So the chayra, this is a befedish mocker from Tanakh, that it's usher for chasanim to wear the ataras when the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed. That's what Rav Chizda tells the Reish Galusa. Now, Adhachi Asam Rav Huna. Now, then Rav Huna came back from the restroom, and Ashkichinu Davi Yasvi, he saw that Rav Chizda and the Reish Galusa were sitting and discussing this pasuk. So Amar Leid Rav Huna tells Rav Chizda Halikim. Halikim is an expression of like I swear to you that the Isser is only midrabanan. In other words, it's a Gzeres Chachamim. There's no source whatsoever in the Torah that it's usher to wear this atara. And he explained that the pasuk means that it's going on that eventually the Kohuna is going to be batal, Hasra Mitznefes, and the Malchus is going to be batal when Tzidkiyahu Melech comes. Ella, rather, what does he mean? Chizda. So what did he say? Nevertheless, when Rav Chizda explained the pasuk, Chizda Shmach v'Chisidon Milach, he said your name is Chizda, and you are saying nice things, but you should know that there's really no source min haTorah. Okay. Then the Gemara says, Ravina Ashkei Lamar, but Ravashi Ravina found Mar, but Ravashi to have a Godol Klila Lebarte. He made this type of, there's a machlekes what this is, but let's say it's either a type of crown or a type of chair. So Ravina found Mar Baravashi that he made this crown for his daughter, who was for his daughter's chasana. So Amarle, so Ravina said, like Savar Mar, do you not hold of the pasuk that says Hasra mitznefes v'hara ma'atara, that after the Churban, when the Kohen Gadol is not wearing the mitznefes anymore, so then a person cannot wear atara, which means that your daughter who's a kala should not be wearing this. So Amarle, so Mar Baravashi, so Mar Baravashi says the Isser is Dumya the Kohen Gadol, which means that has to be similar to the Kohen Gadol, which is Begavra. Who could be a Kohen Gadol? It's only a man. So somebody who's similar to the Kohen Gadol, which is a man, he's usher to wear the Atara. Aval Menashe, but in regards to women, there's absolutely no Isser for a Kala at her Chasana to wear these Ataras. So now we brought this pasuk that says Koyamar Hashem Elikim Hosram Mitznefes V'Haram Atara, and then we said the pasuk says Zois Loi Zois. So the Gemara says My Zois Loi Zois. What does the pasuk mean by saying Zois Loi Zois? So Dalash Ravira Darshan Zimna Amar Mishmei Ravashi. Sometimes he said this in the name of Ravashi. Zimna Amar Mishmei Ravami Asi, and sometimes he said this in the name of Ravashi. What did he say? Shasha Amar Gadish Baruch Yisrael. And Hashem said to the Yidden, Hosra mitznefes v'hedim harim ha'atara, take off the mitznefes and take off the atara. Amru malcha sharas lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the malachim said to Hashem, Ribbonei Shalom Eibishter, Zois lahem Yisrael. This is what you're doing to the Yidden. You're telling them to take off the mitznefes and the atara. These Yidden shektim lefanecha b'sini nasa l'nishma. They had such mysterious nefesh that they said nasa v'nishma by our Sinai. This is what, like we just spoke about this in Shavuos, the Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Peches. So the Chayra, they had such mysterious nefesh. Why would you do this to them? So Amar Lahen, Hashem said, Loi zois lahen Yisrael. These Yidden, they deserve it. Sheshpilu nasagavaya v'igbias hashavel. That they took the high things and they took the low things. They made it high. In other words, they were machabed other gods and they were mazalzel in Hashem. And they midu tzelam be'echel, and they put an avodah zarah in the heichel. So therefore, they deserve now that the ataras and the mitznefes should be taken away from them. Okay. Sometimes he said this in the name of Rav Ami, and sometimes he said this in the name of Rav Asi. He said, what is the pasuk in Nachum that says? Hashem said, Im shleimim v'chein rabim v'chein nagoizu v'ovar goimer. Now, what does this pasuk mean? So he ties up like this. He said, like, if a person sees that he has the exact amount of parnasa which is needed. In other words, Hashem gave him, he could pay his bills, but he doesn't have anything extra to give tzedakah. He has enough to pay his bills, and that's it. Like the expression in English is he lives like paycheck to paycheck. So the Navi is saying is yasim hen tzedakah. Nevertheless, he should give tzedakah, as the in Yankiv explains from the Gemara, that kol hamarachim al briyos merachim Allah min hashemayim. Anybody who has rachmanis on Hashem, on the briyos of Hashem, Hashem has rachmanis on them. So when a person, so that's what it means. Im shleimim, if a person is shalem, so what should he do? V'chein rabim, v'chein nagoizu. That what should he do? He should give tzedakah. He should like shear a little bit, like when you shear the sheep, you grazes the sheep. So what you should do is that even if you're only living from paycheck to paycheck, nagoizu, you should shear off some of that and give it to tzedakah. And the Navi is saying, if the kol shekin yishem merubin, and for sure when you have more than your necessity, when you have more, then you should give that more than that's needed. That's what it means for v'chein rabim. So again, Hashem is saying, im shleimim, if a person is shalem, he has what he needs, and for sure v'chein rabim, he has more than he needs, then v'chein nagoizu, he should shear off and give some of that to tzedakah. So the Gemara asks, "My v'chein nagoizu v'ovar." What is the expression v'chein nagoizu v'ovar? He shears it and it passes. So Tana de Rabbi Shmuel taught that kol ha'geizes min ha'chosov. Anybody who cuts away, who shears away from his property, v'oisim hen tzedakah, and he gives tzedakah. So the Allah, so what's going to happen is number one is nitzal medina shel gehenim. He is going to be saved from Gehenim. So that's what it means. V'chein nagoizu v'ovar, that if he shears off from his property and he gives tzedakah, so then v'ovar, he's going to be saved from Gehenim. And he says, mashal shtei rechel shay oivris b'mayim. This is a mashal of, let's say, two sheep that were walking in the water. Now, achas kezuza, so you had one rachel which was sheared. in other words, they were the hair was off. And one hair and one sheep was not sheared. So what happens? Gzuza avra, the one that was sheared that was able to go b'shalom, and ushe'enig gzuza, and the ones which is not sheared, like avra is not able to pass by the water, because since the sheep, the wool on the sheep is so heavy, the sheep like drowns in the water. So the same thing is by a person. If a person is going to be goizes, is going to take away from some of his rechush and give it to tzedakah, so then what's going to happen? He's going to go b'shalom, and he's going to go in elam haba b'shalom without any punishment. But if he is keeping on to his nechasim, then in other words he's too much weight, so when it comes to elam haba, he's not going to be able to handle it. He's going to drown. Okay, then the Gemara brings the end of the pasuk. The pasuk says V'inisich loy anich oid. So we're holding now Daf Zayin Amud Beis. It says, and though I have afflicted you. Now what does it mean, though I have afflicted you? Marzutra says, Afilu ani amispartis minatzedakah, even a poor person who he himself gets his sustenance, gets his livelihood from tzedakah, nevertheless, yasa tzedakah, he also should give tzedakah. So that's what it means. Like we said, Nagoizu v'inisich, that even if he himself is suffering and he himself needs tzedakah, nevertheless, he should also give tzedakah. Then the pasuk says, Loi a'anich oid, I will afflict you no more. So, Tana Rabbi Yosef says, what does that mean? That shuv in maran le'simone aniyas, that when a person gives charity to others, Hashem will no longer show him signs of aniyas, show him signs of poverty. Yeah. Okay, so Adkan the sugya we got into a little Agadat over here, and now we're going to go back to the Mishnah. We said that we're holding Zayin Amud Beis, the third line, Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda says that Mirekem the Mizrach, from this place Rekem, and when you go eastwards, so that's considered like Chutz La'aretz. And then Rabbi Yehuda said that Akoi, when you go in Akoi and you go north of Akoi, that is considered also like Chutz La'aretz. So now the Gemara asks, L'meimra, is this to say the Akul L'tzvene the Eretz Yisrael Kaima? Is this to tell us that Akoi is on the north of Eretz Yisrael? What does it say? That Akoi, when you go Akoi and you go north, that's considered like Chutz La'aretz. So the Gemara, which implies that Akoi is on the north of Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara says, Urimina, I'm going to ask you a stira from a brisa to our Mishnah. What does the brisa say? If somebody was walking from Akoi to Keziv. If you look in the pictures, Rashi has, I'll post a better picture on the WhatsApp from Daf HaChaim I saw today, so there's a better, I'll post it in a minute. But basically when somebody is going from Akoi to Keziv, so the din is like this. So miminoi, from his right, when he's going right, when he's walking from Akoi to Keziv, and he's going on the right side, then the halacha is lemizrach haderech, when he goes on the right side eastwards, so then the way is tmeya mishum eretz amim. Number one is, we know the din is that any land outside of Eretz Yisrael has the din, it's tummy. Automatically it's tummy. Why? Because the Chachamim realized that the Goyim were just burying people, and they were not like identifying, they just buried people right and left, and they weren't identifying who's like no kfarim. You didn't know what's a kaver, what's not a kaver. So the Chachamim made a gzeda and said that all lands of Evdei Kechavim are all tummy. So that's number one. So he's saying is that if a person was going from Akoi to Keziv, so miminoi, from the land from his right, which is the Mizrach HaDerech, which is east, Tmeya, it's Tameh. Why? Mishum, number one, because of Eretz Amim. Because it has the din of Chutz La'aretz, and Chutz La'aretz is Tameh because it's like the Goyish land. Now, number two, since it's not part of Eretz Yisrael, Pturim and Meiser. It's also Pater from Meiser Rishon, Meiser Sheni, Meiser Ani. It's all Pater. Why? Because only produce which grows in Eretz Yisrael, that's Chayiv in Meiser. And number three, Umen HaShvis is also Pater from Shvis of Shemitah. That you're not allowed to work the land in Shemitah and these different halachas, it's Pater. Why? Because it has the din of Chutz La'aretz. Now, the klal is, the Brisa says, until you know specifically, shehi chayeves, that this piece of land is chayev and meiser and shvis. In other words, that unless a baki is going to come and say that I know for sure that this land is Eretz Yisrael, you can rest assured that in the east part of when you go from Akkad to Kziv and you're going east, so on the right and you're going right, you should know that that is like Chutz La'aretz. Now, then the Brisa says Mismailei, but when you go on the left side from Akkad to Kziv, so then L'maydev Haderech, when you're going west, so then the halacha is like this. First of all, Tahira Mishum Eretz Amim. You should know it has the din of Eretz Yisrael and it's tar. Number two, V'chayeves b'maiser v'shvis. It's also chayev and maiser and shvis. Why? Because it has a din of Eretz Yisrael. And also, and the same thing, Achivad l'cha shehi p'tur, unless you know for sure that this land is not Eretz Yisrael. Now, the Brisa says, Ad heichon, okay, so now, where exactly is, you're saying, where is exactly is the borders of, you're saying from the west of Eretz Yisrael, exactly where does it stop? So the Gemara says Ad Keziv. In Keziv, Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi S Greenwald, Mishum Aviv, he says Ad Lav Lavai. So what do you see from this Brisa? You're telling me that basically from Akoi and onwards north it's like Chutz La'aretz. But here the Brisa says clearly that it's much further. If you look in the maps, so if you look in the map over here, it says you have Eretz Yisrael. On the right side of Eretz Yisrael is Akoi. Rashi makes a picture, and then this is an answer. But then you have after Akoi is Kziv. So our Brisa, our Mishnah is mashma that Akoi is mamish chutz la'aretz. But the way that he puts it over here is that where is the borders is Kziv, or it's in Lavlavai, which is a lot further than Akoi, which would imply from this Brisa that Akoi for sure is part of Eretz Yisrael. So Amar Abaya says that Ritzua Nafka, there was like a strip. A strip that extended northward from Akoi, which is still considered part of Eretz Yisrael, but you should know the general border is Akoi. So in other words, this strip that extended from northwards from Akoi, that's part of Eretz Yisrael, but in general it's Chutz La'aretz. So the Gemara asks for Yosef Tana Simone Hachi, and would the Tana, the Brisa, provide a sign in this manner for an area just of a strip of land? So the Gemara says, yes, absolutely. Why? Kra nami yoiv simona. Because if you look, the pasuk themselves also gives a sign. What does the sign say? The pasuk says, "Vayemru hine chag Hashem b'shiloi miyamim yamima Hashem mitzvaynu lebeis loel," which means, behold, there is this feast of Hashem from the year to year in Shiloi. Mizrocha Hashemesh lemesila ha'ilu mebeis el shechema umi negev lilveina, which is on the north of Beis El, on the east side of the highway that goes up from Beis El to Shechem, on the south of Levina. Rav Papa says, the Mizracha Shel Mesila, he says, to the east of the highway. Now, what do we see from this pasuk? That there's an area as narrow as a road that can be used as a sign. Upon him, you see that sometimes psukim do give signs in a certain place. Okay, so now, the next part of the Gemara, the Mishnah, we learned that somebody who brings a get from Medinas Hayam to Eretz Yisrael, so the theme of the Mishnah is, the teichem of the Mishnah is, he has to say, B'fanei nichtav, or B'fanei nechtav. Now, the Gemara is going to give, in a case of, let's say, somebody who's bringing the get on a ship. He's bringing on a ship, and the Gemara is going to bring two brises which l'cha'ira contradict each other. Now, what are these two brises? So the Gemara says, Tani Chada, it was taught in one brisa, Hamevi get besfina, somebody who brings a get, and he's on a boat, he's in Eretz Yisrael, and he's bringing the get. Let's say he wrote the get on the boat, or he received the get on the boat. So the halacha is, and he's bringing it now to Eretz Yisrael. So the halacha is, Kemevi Eretz Yisrael. It's like he brought like he's bringing the get in Eretz Yisrael on dry land. And we know somebody who brings a get in Eretz Yisrael does not need to say b'fanei nichtav or b'fanei nechtam. V'tani idach, and another brisa says that when a person brings a get or receives a get on a boat and now he's bringing it to Eretz Yisrael, so kimevi b'chutz la'aretz. It's like he brought it from chutz la'aretz, and he does have to say the words b'fanei nichtav or b'fanei nechtam. Now, so you make up your mind. When you are on a boat, and let's say in Eretz Yisrael, and you're bringing the get, what? Right, but here, okay, so till now we think that basically the person is in the boat's in Eretz Yisrael, and he is, let's say, on the whatever, he's on a cruise, and a guy says, "Here, I want you to be a shliach leilacha to go and bring this get to my wife," but he's in a boat. So one brisa says it's like in Eretz Yisrael, the land, the boat's in Eretz Yisrael. It's like it's what? He doesn't need to say b'fanei, and it's mashma. And another brisa that doesn't need to say b'fanei. So Rabbi Yirmiyah says like kasha. It's not a question. Why is it not a question? Ha Rabbi Yehuda, ha Rabbanan. It depends. We have a machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan. The Tanan, we learned in a brisa. Afar chutz la'aretz, haba b'sfina la'aretz. If a person brought, let's say he has soil from outside of Eretz Yisrael, and he brings this soil from outside of Eretz Yisrael into Eretz Yisrael, and it's brought on a boat to Eretz Yisrael, so the halacha is anything that grew in that soil, chayiv b'maiser u'b'shvis. He's obligated to sign maiser and shvis. Now, why? Because he holds that the soil is considered part of Eretz Yisrael once it arrives in Eretz Yisrael, which means that the plants growing in Eretz Yisrael are considered part of Eretz Yisrael. So now, the Chachamim hold that once something is in Eretz Yisrael, it's considered like Eretz Yisrael. Now, Rabbi Yehuda says no. Amosai, when do I say that when plants or when soil is brought on a boat from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael on a boat, I say that it's considered like it's part of Eretz Yisrael? It was manshas svina geisheshes. It's only when the boat is like skimming. In other words, it's on the seafloor, which means it's way down in the water. It's like mamish in the shallow waters. Aval ein asvina geisheshes. But if the boat is not skimming the sea, then pater, it's exempt. So the Chachamim, they hold that the boat is considered to be like Eretz Yisrael with regards to Gittin. So this that we say that the Brisa says, that when you bring a get besvina, as the din of Eretz Yisrael, so they're going to hold in accordance with the Chacham of our Mishnah, that holds that the boat is not like Eretz Yisrael let me just explain a little better. So we have the brisa. We have like this. We have what the first and second brisa. So he says like this. The second brisa, which taught Rabbi Yehuda that the rivers is like Eretz Yisrael, and the first brisa, which says maybe get besvina is kemevi Eretz Yisrael. That is the Shittas Chacham. Now, where do we see this? So I have a Mishnah in Chala which says, again, the dust of Chutz La'aretz, if you bring a soil from Chutz La'aretz that you bring in a boat to Eretz Yisrael. Now, it's mashma that just to explain a little clearer, because obviously if soil is brought into Eretz Yisrael and you plant it in Eretz Yisrael, for sure it has the din of Eretz Yisrael. So here the vort is that it was growing on the boat. The fruit was growing on the boat. So the chiddush is chayiv b'maiser u'b'shvis. It's chayiv b'maiser and shvis. Why? Because I assume that the rivers of Eretz Yisrael have the din of Eretz Yisrael as well. Okay. Now Rabbi Yehuda said. Right. So Rabbi Yehuda says, when is he chayiv in maiser and shvis? Is only when the actual svina is touching the ground. So I say that if the boat is touching the ground, and now that the soil is touching the plant is touching the boat, which is touching the ground, so then it's considered part of Eretz Yisrael. But if the svin is not skimming the ground, then it's pater from Meiser and Shvis. So what do we see from here? I see that according to Rabbi Yehuda, the water is considered a chatzitza from the ground. So it comes out. So now like this. So the two brises, one brisa says that a get that was written in a boat is talking about, so like this. So now the brisa which says that it has the din of Eretz Yisrael, that's talking about what? That when the boat is skimming. And the first brisa which teaches us that the get, that the din of the get is like written in Eretz Yisrael, is talking about the shittas of the Chachamim, and the second brisa which teaches us that the get is in the Chutz La'aretz, that's according to shittas Rabbi Yehuda, which he holds that the rivers in Eretz Yisrael are not like Eretz Yisrael in regards to Meiser and Shvis. Therefore, also in regards to dinim, they don't have the din of Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so now that's one way to explain the stira of the brisa. Now, Abaya says, Hava Rabbi Yehuda. Be'emes, both brises are the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. And v'lei kasha, it's not a question. Kam is man she'ein asvina gesheshes. Here, the brisa where the soil is considered outside of Eretz Yisrael is talking about when the boat is not skimming the seafloor. And Kan, and there in the brisa which says that the soil is considered like Eretz Yisrael, that's referring to as man she'asvina gesheshes. It's talking about when the svina is touching it. So I guess when you maybe get this svina and we're saying it's maybe Eretz Yisrael, that's talking about if it's touching the floor. But this that we're saying that I maybe get on a boat from Chutz La'aretz, and we're saying it does not have the din of Eretz Yisrael, is talking about when it's not touching the ground. Okay. Rav Zeir says, Otzutz Nakov, Amunach Agabe Yisedis. If you have, Otzutz is like a flower pot, but it has a hole in it. Now, for beauty, they used to take this flower pot, put it, like, let's say, on stilts, on Yisedis, on pegs, but it had a hole in the flower pot, so it wasn't really connected to the ground. It was like on stilts in the air. So Rav Zeir says, we're going to come to the same machlekes between like Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanim. Second, sorry. What's the machlekes? So he says, just as the Chachamim hold that the soil is considered attached to Eretz Yisrael, even if the boat does not actually touch the sea, right? The Chacham said it always has the din of Eretz Yisrael. The same would apply to this otzutz on pegs that has a din of Eretz Yisrael. In other words, that it's considered part of the land. And the Rabbi Yehuda holds that in both cases the soil has to actually come in contact with the earth in order for it to be considered part of Eretz Yisrael. So again, this case of otzutz nokov amunach agabi yisedes. Does it have the din? Does it have so this otzutz nokov? It's in Eretz Yisrael. So what's the word? So it's not connected to the ground, right? It's not connected to the ground, but it has the avir of Eretz Yisrael. It's not touching, but it gets its nourishment from the avir. So in regards to, so now the question is, it has to be part of Eretz Yisrael in order for it to be Mechayev Meiser. But it's not touching the ground. So he says, so what will be the din? So it will be totally in a machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim. If you hold, the Chachamim are going to hold that always, whenever you have the boat in the sea, it's considered like it's part of Eretz Yisrael, which means the Naharis of Eretz Yisrael to Eretz Yisrael, and they're going to hold the same thing, which is Otzutz Nokiv, that also it's going to be, even though it's not on the ground, it's going to be considered part of the ground. Mashenkin, according to Rabbi Yehuda, he's going to hold that. So just like Rabbi Yehuda holds that in regards to if it grows on the Sfina, it's putter from water if it's not touching the water. It's the same thing if it's not touching it, if the plant is not touching the actual ground, so it will be putter. Fine. So that's who says this, Rabbi Zeir says this. Amar Rava says no. Dilma Lahi, maybe that's not really true. Now, Ad Kan, like Amar Rabbi Yehuda Hasam Elad B'Sfina, maybe over there in the Mishnah and Chala, when you have something growing on the boat, which is not touching the ground. So over there, he's going to hold that if it's not touching the ground, it's pater memaiser. Why? Ella only in regards to something which is grown b'sfina daf chesam and aleph on the actual boat. Ha'asu yilivreach, because a boat, we know a boat it travels. It doesn't. It's always moving. So since he holds that on a boat, Rabbi Yehuda holds that that calls man that it's not really in the ground and it's just on the boat and the boat is moving, it doesn't really get its nourishment from the ground. As long as the boat is not skimming the floor, so he's going to hold over there that it's not mechuyev meiser, because at the end of the day the boat is moving around and it's not getting the nourishment from the ground. Aval otzitz, but when it comes to this flower pot which is situated on pegs, she'ena asuy livreich, it's not made to actually run away. Loi, maybe Rabbi Yehuda will not hold this. Rather, maybe he'll agree that in such a case, it's chayiv and meiser and shvis, even though it's not touching the ground, because at the end of the day, It's in one place. That's one way to learn it. Inami, and also you can make a difference between the otzitz and the sfina in another case. That Arkan, like Rabban Hossa, maybe the Chachamim hold over there in the Mishnah that when something grows, it's chayv ma'aser v'shvius ela b'sfina. Dafke by a boat, the loy mafsika avire, which you don't have the ear, which makes a separation between the boat and the karka. The mayo kiara smichta damya, because the water is like thick ground. In other words, I say that the water is like a chelik of the ground. So it's kilu, like it's touching the ground. So maybe dafka over there they hold that even if it's not gesheshes, it's still getting its nourishment from the ground. Avo otzitz, but when it comes to the flower pot, which is on the pegs, the mafsik avira, which you have the wind, or I should say the ear, which is mafsik between the thing which is grown and the karka loy, maybe the chachamim will not agree. Okay, let's just do, what time is it? Let's just do a quick chazar and then we'll take a minute break and start the next number. Okay, so basically we started today, we brought a, let's find the place. Okay, so we brought this whole ma'isa of Pilegesh Begiva. So Rav Chisda said that a person should be very careful not to scare his household too much, because we see the whole ma'isa Pilegesh Begiva, that he scared his wife, she ran away, and thousands of Yidden in Shevet Binyamin passed away from this. Then he said another thing. Rabbi Yehuda Marav says that anybody who puts an excessive fear in his house, so eventually he'll come to 3 averis. He'll come to arayis, because his wife will not really say that she's tar, shvichas damim, that like we said the ma'aseh begiva, or like the wife's going to run away and she's going to fall in a pit or jump off a bridge. And the third thing is chilul Shabbos, because she's just going to be mechal Shabbos to make her husband happy, as Rashi explained. Then Rabbi Baruch Hana said this, that the Chachamim, the Mishnah said that 3 things you have to say Erev Shabbos. Number 1, Isartem, Idaftem, Idlikos, and Eres, you have to say this be Nachas. So why? In order that people should accept it. So Rashi says, I never heard this, but it makes a lot of sense, and I do this. Then Rabbi Avo says a person should never put an Amy Yisera in his house, because there was an Adam Gadol that put an Amy Yisera, and like the Gemara says, he almost ate something which was forbidden, and we said, what was that? That was Aver Menachai. And we said we can't say that he actually ate something, because if a behemtish tzaddikim, like we said, Pinchas ben Yair, like Pinchas ben Yair, his we know the Gemara says even his animal didn't want to eat the mai, so kol shekin a tzaddik never eats something even by mistake. Okay, then the Gemara brought that sholach le marukva le Rabbi Lazar, the people that are, he says basically marukva asked Rabbi Lazar Shala, you have these people that are making me crazy, can I go and rat them out to the government? So he wrote something, and he said the pasuk amarti eshman adrachem achtav l'sheni, that you should keep quiet, that even though the Rishayim are bothering you, you should keep quiet. So he says, but they're driving me crazy. So he says deim la Hashem v'yischedolei, which means keep quiet and Hashem will take care of the people bothering you. And he said, Hashkim v'harav alei in the Beis HaMedrash, go to the Beis HaMedrash v'hein, call them aleim, and they're going to go away by themselves. And then as Rabbi Lazar was speaking, they locked up this guy, Geniva, who was bothering him. As the Mefarshim say, he was a big Talmud Chacham, but he was a crazy guy. And they locked him up, and they and he was Nimsa Malchus. Okay. Then Shochalei Lemar Ukva. They asked Shalat Mar Ukva, singing, where do we know that singing nowadays it's usher? So he wrote on a search, the pasuk says, Al Tisma Yisrael Gil Ba'amim, that when you should not be singing. So the Gemara asks, why doesn't he say clearly, B'shir Yishtu Yayin Yemer Sheichel Sheisav? The pasuk clearly says that when you're in a festive house, you should not be, and drinking wine, you should not sing. So the Gemara says, if from that pasuk, I would think it's with a instrument, but what if with your mouth? I would think that it's mutter. I would think that it's mutter kamashmal, that it's asr. Now, Amar Rav Huna bar Nosson Rav Ashi, what's this pasuk? Kina b'dimina v'adada. So he says, what the pasuk means is that when a person has kina in his blood, that he's upset at his friend, that his friend hurt him, and he keeps quiet, then Hashem Sheikhan Ad will help you and take care of your enemy. So he asked him, what about sigleg umadamna v'sansana? So he says, you know what, if this guy would be around, he would be able to darshan. And he says, you know what, the pshat is that somebody who is so crying that somebody is taking away his parnasa with him and he keeps quiet, so then Hashem is going to besneh, is going to make himself a din. Then Amar Shkulus Rav Huna, where do we know that the chassan cannot wear the klila, this crown. So he says it's Isra Mid'Rabbanan. The Mishnah said, like we learned in Saita, that they made from Aspianas, they made that you can't wear Ataras Chasanim. So then what happened was Rav Huna went to the restroom. So Rav Chisda says it's a Beferish Pasik. And he brought the whole Pasik of Koyim Hashem and Lakim, that a Hosra Mitznefes, that when the Kohen Gadol removes the Mitznefes, you have to remove the Atara. So what happened was he came back and he said it's not true. It's only Midrabanan. Okay. Then the Gemara says Ravina found a Marbar of Ashi that he was making this crown, this chair for his daughter. So he says, "What do you mean? You're not allowed to do this?" She says, "No, that's only a man, but a woman is allowed to do this." So what does it mean? My zeis lo zeis. So Rabbi Vida says that Hashem says that when the Yidden are not take away the mitznefes and take away the Torah. So the Malchus Asher says this is the repayment for the Yidden saying Nasav and Ishma. So he says they deserve it because they basically brought away the Zar into the Heichel. Then he said the pasuk of Koyama Hashem im shleimim. So he said that if a person sees that he's living paycheck to paycheck, he has enough parnasa, but only to live enough. He doesn't have enough for tzedakah. So the Gemara says mitzumtzamim. So yasim and tzedakah, he should still give tzedakah v'kol shekin if he has more. Ma'ay v'chena goizu. So he says that anybody who takes away from his property and gives tzedakah, he will be saved from Gehenim. And we said this is like a mashal of two rechelis that were walking in the water. One was sheared, one was not sheared. And the person who was the rachel who was sheared, so he didn't have weight. They were able to last in the water. So same thing as when somebody gives, a person is accumulated with a lot of weight in his life. The weight of Gashmi. So when you give some of that away and you're lighter, then you're going to have a beautiful Ilam Haba. Okay. Now what does it mean v'inisech? So he says that even an aniyam isparit minat tzedakah, he should give tzedakah, which means that when a person, even though it's difficult for him to give tzedakah, Hashem will help him that he won't see any signs of aniyas. Okay. Then we said that akoi l'tzafin chutz la'aretz. So we asked that it's mashma from here that akoi is on the north of Eretz Yisrael, but we're going to bring you a brisa from this whole din of that it's mashma that it's not that fakert, that kaziv is the border or lav lovlei, which means akoi is part of Eretz Yisrael. So he says no, it's chutz la'aretz, but there's just a ritzua, a little strip that's part of Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara says you have to give a sign. Yes, I have a pasuk that gives me a sign. Then we brought a stira between two brises. One brisa says that when a person brings a get in like we explained, this boat is in Eretz Yisrael, and he's writing the get in Eretz Yisrael on the boat. He's bringing the get. So one brisa says it has a din of Eretz Yisrael, which he does not have to say b'fanai, and the other brisa says maybe b'chutz la'aretz, that he doesn't have to say b'fanai. So he said it's not a stira. It depends. We brought this afar chutz la'aretz. If you have soil that you brought from chutz la'aretz, you brought on a boat, and then vegetables started growing. So according to Tanakama, it has the din that of Eretz Yisrael that it's mechuyev in Meiser and Shvis. Why? Because the fact is the boat is in Eretz Yisrael, so the soil also has the din of Eretz Yisrael. So,
where was it written on the boat?
Yeah, on the boat.
You're not looking where it came from.
On the boat. It was written, it was given to the shliach on the boat. So Rabbi Yehuda says, he argues with the Tanakama. He says that this offer chutz la'aretz that it grew on the boat, it depends. If the Svina is actually touching the land of Eretz Yisrael, then it has a din of Eretz Yisrael. But if it's not touching, then it's pater, because the boat is in the middle of the yam. The Naharis don't have the din of Eretz Yisrael. So the same thing, that would also be the Bryce which says I maybe get Besvinas, maybe Eretz Yisrael will hold like the Chachamim, that it always has the din of Eretz Yisrael. And the Bryce which says I maybe get the Chutz La'aretz, that's talking about a case when the boat is not touching the land. So Abaye says no, they're both Rabbi Yehuda, and it depends. Very simple. When it's Gesheshes, it has the din of Eretz Yisrael. When it's not Gesheshes, it does not have the din of Eretz Yisrael. Reb Zeta says that in the case when you have this flower pot, which is Munach Al-Gabi Yisedes, so now, like we explained, that this flower pot is in Eretz Yisrael. It's not touching the land of Eretz Yisrael, but it gets the aver of Eretz Yisrael. So the shaila is it mechuyev in Meiser or not? So the Gemara says it will be a machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanon. The Chachamim will hold that the land is always part of Eretz Yisrael. He'll hold that here also it's part of Eretz Yisrael. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, he'll hold that something that grows on the svina is pater memaiser, because since it's not touching the land, so therefore he'll hold that in the case of the otzis nokev amunach Rabbi say this is pater from meiser. So Rabbi says no, that's not true. Maybe you could say that Rabbi Yehuda only over there in the Mishnah he holds his pater because the svina moves around. So since it moves around, it's not stationed in one place. So we're saying it's not part of the land. But when it comes to otzis, which it is stationed, maybe the avir gets its nourishment from the ground. And the Gemara said,
How so? What happens if you ride it in an airplane?
well, what's that?
How do you get it from the ground?
One second. Let me finish and then I'll answer. Inami, or maybe the Chachamim said that only by the case of the svina, by the case of the boat, which you don't have the ear making a hefsek between the boat and the karka. So maybe we're going to say that the water and the karka basically are all one. The water is like one long karka. But in the case of the otzitz, by the case of the flower pot, which is munach agabi say this, which over there the ground or the avir is separating the otzitz from the ground, maybe he's going to hold that it will be not mechuyev in Tumas HaMaisa. Let's take a minute break and then we'll do the next one. Yeah, I just want to put it out there. Just again, people ask me, people text me privately. You do 2 blocks, it's too tough. So I just want to repeat again. It's only till next week. People ask me to catch up to the Daf Yomi cycle. So it's only really till Sunday, Monday, and then we're gonna